You've been patiently waiting, folks, and we've done it. We've compiled the 5 best Avengers Marvel Legends. Let's talk about it. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Strong Collectors Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota, here with my co-host, Jordan, and we like to play fast and loose with the term best. Now, objectively, maybe you would say this figure is the best of whoever it is for the Avengers, but we're trying to put together 2 teams here for each of us. We have a classic team. I made a classic team. Jordan made a classic team. I don't know what he's got. We might have some overlap, probably. And we also made just kind of a fun Avengers team. It doesn't necessarily have to be a team from like West Coast Avengers or New Avengers, anything like that. It's just figures we liked that we put in there. To us, they're the best, the best. So
the best of the best, one might say.
Let's start out with our classic team. And I'll warn you, Jordan, I did go off script and I did put together a third team. Somewhat of a, you could say, but I went all Toy Biz on one of these teams. So let's do classics first. I'll give you my Toy Biz team, and then we can do our kind of fun Avengers at the end. So you go first with your classic team. I'm interested to see what you put together and how much it cost.
Yes. Yeah, we will have price tags on this, folks. So for a classic team, Dakota, you and I both know you can't have an Avengers team without Captain America. Mm-hmm. Now, this is going to be probably a hot take. You might roast me, and the commenters might as well. But for my best that I selected, I'm going retro Cap.
Okay.
Now, my reasoning for this, I do like the 20th. I think it's good. There are just some things that I think we're not quite there with the articulation at the price point of what it is. I know it's not a price thing, but I think that still is part of in my head a little bit. Because, we do that price versus quality. I think that weighs in. So, and I really love for the retro Cap is the throw-in shield effect. To me, that is one of the coolest things. I remember being really impressed when I got this one. And I think he works really well just for your traditional comic pop type display. And you can get this one for really like $20, which I think is a pretty good value. Yeah. I mean, I was doing some eBay looking. It's, maybe a little with some change on there. But I think for that being a Cap, he is pretty solid, coming in at $20 until we get whatever's next.
Yeah, I'm surprised that's the only Captain America that's come with that throwing shield effect. Mm-hmm. There was it Red Guardian or some other Captain America-ish type of, or U.S. agent or something like that came with the same effect. But I think that's the only Captain America that's had that throwing effect. So maybe in our maximum, we'll see that reused.
Ooh, I'm sure we will. So for me, for a best, I'm putting Cap on there. My next one I'm going to hit you with is Iron Man, and that is the 20th Iron Man. Now, we've talked about that before. Again, you can still get this one for about $20, and that still blows me away. The great Iron Man, everything I think you'd want out of an Iron Man for that classic look. So I'm going to have him on there. My third, you need a Thor on your Avengers team. And I don't know if this is going to be controversial. It probably is, Dakota. But my favorite Thor, I think of all time, is still Harold Thor. And you might be saying that messes with the classic look, whatever. I still think for the bang for your buck, still about $26 you could get this Harold Thor. And, I mean, a little more than what it was at some points. But I think for what you get, for what he is, for the quality of the figure, I think that's your best Thor. I don't really love even the 80th one. I think he's a little too stagnant. Can't do too much with him, in my opinion. And then we're going to need a Black Widow on there. Again, that Earth's Mightiest, still in that $50 range. So I think my best for what you can get is going to be the Black Widow Walmart. I know you like this one a lot as well. I think this one is pretty darn great for your Avengers. And you get some variety with the shorter hair and all the different cool effects. And the gray. I think the gray looks nice. And this one you can still get for about $30. And then I got to throw in the Vision, and I'm going with the Mindless one. I think this is a great Vision. About $26 you can get him on Big Red Toy Store. And that would round out my Avengers team there for a grand total of, I believe, more or less, around this $122.
That's pretty good.
Which, as I totaled that, I'm like, that's a pretty good price for those figures.
Yeah, that really is, because my classic team is going to cost you a bit more. I was not really worried about the price tags on these. I was mainly just going for what is my favorite look of each of these characters. We have only one overlap, so I'm kind of surprised. I thought we'd have more, but it's only one. So, well, for now, I do have one of your characters later on, but I also agree. You got to have Captain America on the team. I, though, went with the 20th. I do like those. Like, I know there's the holes in the shield, but I like the effects on there. Even just like I've seen people have it like, you know, Captain America's got his shield like punched into the ground with the kind of slash effect. I think that looks cool. I've even just had him like standing in the slash effect is kind of more like a shine effect. I like that. I'm going with that one. I do think that we are going to still be seeing a better Captain America probably pretty soon. There's the Secret Wars wave cap. A little too busted up of a shield for me. I think it looks cool, but I like the colors on the 20th a little bit better, and you get tons of accessories there. We do have our one overlap is Iron Man. You know, I love that 20th Iron Man. $20, you can't beat that. Now, I know for only about $5 more you could get the Secret Wars Iron Man, and that one does look good and also pinless, so, you know, there's some good argument there for that being a good one. He comes with roller skates too, so I'm tempted for that reason only. But I like the horn head on the 20th. I think he comes with enough accessories for me, barring the roller skates, but, you know, he works, and he's $20. I think that's a steal for an Iron Man. Now, I have a Hulk in my team. I went with the 80th anniversary Hulk, the one that came with the Wolverine. I know, Jordan, you think his head looks a little small. I like the colors on him. I like that he comes with the ripped up shirt. You could say you just wait a little bit longer, get the maximum Hulk. I still like the 80th look better. I think the 20th is also a good look, but I'm partial to the 80th. So he's in my collection or my display here. He's going to run you about $80. So at that point, probably just go with the newer version of it. But it's up to you. This is my list. I picked 80th.
Yeah.
Now,
that's fair.
What really brings my bottom dollar up quite a bit here, I can't have an Avengers display without my Toy Biz Giant Man Build-A-Figure. He's going to be about $150.
Okay.
But I think it's worth it. I know you've got your HasLab up there, but to me, I still like the way that the Toy Biz one scales a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
Objectively, sure, the HasLab is a better figure, but it's a little bit too big compared to my other Avengers. Like, I don't need my Giant Man maxed out height-wise. I just want him bigger. So he fits on the shelf, and to me looks a little bit better, especially with this smaller group of Avengers. If you got like a giant Avengers display, the HasLab maybe makes more sense, but with only 5 figures here, I want them a little bit more condensed. Now, Giant Man adds a really cool scale effect, so let's not stop there. I want to add Wasp, and I'm adding in the little bitty Wasp that came from the Toy Biz Goliath. Now, I couldn't really find her by herself for like that great of a price. You can buy the whole set sealed for $40, and then you could sell off your Ant-Man and Goliath and probably make back $30, and she'd only be 10. So I like that Wasp as kind of the smaller version of it. So you got your bigger Giant Man, smaller Wasp. All in all, this is going to run you about $350. Now, significantly more than your Avengers, Jordan. But it kind of shows you the different directions you could go there. I think I did go with kind of the more expensive Captain America, a pretty expensive Hulk. Obviously, Giant Man adds 150 right there. So,
yeah, I was going to put in a Hulk, and I was going to do the 20th, but I started seeing his prices. He's gone up a decent amount. I mean, he's, you're almost paying close to 80 for him sometimes, between, 70 and 80. And I was like, I don't know. And then I'm like, do you have to have a Hulk? I get there's some argument on that, but I think a Hulk is a good call for most people's displays. So I think a lot of people would want to go maybe more your route, but for a brief second, I thought you were throwing a HasLab Giant Man on there. That would have made me laugh. It's just a little bit. Okay, it's only 358 more. No, the Toy Biz one does look awesome, I think, with your general display. So that is a good call, and I like the Wasp. It's a good touch.
Yeah. Now I'll switch you over into my Toy Biz, kind of a budget-friendly option here, because this is all going to run you under $100. Now, before we do that, Jordan,
Yes.
I don't know if the listeners out there are aware, but we've got a large chunk of the people listening right now that aren't even subscribed. So
What?
if you could, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button. Look at this chart. This is how many of you are not subscribed right now. Now let's get into the Toy Biz now that you've all hit that subscribe button.
Right.
First off, this is a favorite of mine and one that I put in a lot of my Avengers displays in general, but that's Phasing Vision. And I think he gets forgotten about because he's a Toy Biz figure. But I would love if Hasbro redid this, and he's going to be the one on this list that runs you the most, and he only costs $30. So, really cool figure. I love the phasing looks, and it's not the only kind of translucent-y phasing one I'm going to talk about today. But before we do that, I got to have a Black Panther, and I actually really love the Sentinel Wave Toy Biz Black Panther. I like the gold claws. I know Hasbro did a new version of it. Might talk about that later. But to me, this was like the coolest look for Black Panther. Then, another one that I think is, I'm still going to say is my favorite look. I know that it's outdated because it's Toy Biz, but I think Falcon from Toy Biz is really cool. And I think we're going to get that same kind of retro classic Falcon costume in the new leaked Secret Wars wave. But for right now, this Falcon, only $15. So I said the Vision was the most expensive at $30. Black Panther is $15. Falcon is also $15. Another $15 figure, and I think is still arguably doesn't hold up, but Doctor Strange from Toy Biz, the Galactus wave.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like the details on his costume. You know, kind of give you that spellcaster with like a big enveloping cape. $15.
I always loved the look of his gloves. His gloves were always so well
too.
done. The yellow with the black was pretty slick. So, yeah, I'll give you that.
Last up, the second most expensive on the list for $20 is going to be a Giant Man Wave Thor. So I think this one looks a little bit better than the other one. The other one had kind of like a weird, like frowny open mouth. But this one, I think they got the head sculpt a little bit better. And then gives you that classic Avenger with Thor. So all in all, $95 for the Toy Biz Avengers.
Yeah. I think
bad.
there's something to be said for the Toy Biz. So.
And I still work some of those in. I kind of, actually I do have a Toy Biz in my next list, but even in my displays, I like to, like I said, Toy Biz Phasing Vision, probably one of the most slept on Avengers characters in Marvel Legends, in my opinion.
That's a nice effect, and I think it would be cool to see that brought back with some of the more modern technology. So I'd go for a Phasing Vision.
Yeah. Now, how about your wild card, your Avengers Your Way, Jordan? What do you got for that team?
Some of our favorites. So for this one, Dakota, I felt more inclined to splurge a little bit on some that maybe there's some alternatives, but these are the ones that I like.
Interesting, because I went the other way. My classic was expensive. My way, this is my cheaper. My like favorite list is the cheaper list.
In my wildest dreams,
but close. Yeah.
In my wildest dreams, I save money. Okay. So my first one I'm going to hit you with is the Ant-Man, the classic Target one. I really like that Ant-Man. I think he is pretty solid, great look. I love posing that one. He's a lot of fun. He's about $35 if you wanted to find him now, which I don't think is too terribly bad. But I like that Ant-Man a lot.
That's the Astonishing Ant-Man, right?
Yes, Astonishing Ant-Man. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Next, I'm going to move on to Wonder Man, and I'm going with Puff Adder. And I do really like this Wonder Man. I just think the red jacket is fun. I don't think he's iconic for it has to be in your Avengers display, but I think he adds a nice little spice. And he's only about $15. You can still get him, which I think is pretty good. I know. That's pretty shocking to me. So Wonder Man's going to be on there. Next, I'm going with one that I never anticipated keeping, and this is Hercules from the movie Thanos wave. Now, this is the one where he's got the pants, he's got the sword, the mace, that whole look. And I think I got this in a lot or a trade or something, and I'm not a huge Hercules guy. You know that, Dakota. But I kept this one, and I've had him the whole time, and I think he's going a little higher now than maybe he was when I got him, but he's about $35. And I think he's a cool cool look to your Hercules. Still a pretty solid figure in the accessories. I prefer that look than the like retro Speedo thing. I know that's some people's vibe. Nothing against burly, hairy dudes in Speedos, but I'm putting this Hercules on my list. And then we're going to go with, I got to put a Black Panther on here. And one that surprised me was the Atuma Black Panther. I think I really like just how simple that one is. I think it gets the just basic black suit going on. I like the little toes. And I think he's cool. You can do the cape on and off to add some variety to it. But I think he's just a good classic Black Panther. He's probably about $25. And then this last one is kind of weird. But it is a Falcon figure, and I went with the Joe Fixit Falcon. Now, again, another one that I got in a lot, and again, I don't have a ton of attachment to Falcon, but I've kept this one, and I've had him this whole time, because I think he is so fun to pose. I think you can get him in some really cool swooping poses. He's got those straight-out hands that I like. And I know I haven't had the retro one, and I think they're pretty similar, slightly different looks, but I went with Joe Fixit because that's the one that I've had. So you can tell me, I think some people like the retro one with the sleeves off. I think they're pretty similar. You can fact check me, Dakota, or the commenters can if there's a big difference between them. But I always thought they were about the same, just different paint. And a grand total for these for me, I guess it's still not too much. It's about $130 is what I got based on some mixing of Amazon, eBay prices.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, mine's not too much cheaper than that. So, we've got some overlap in characters, but we went with different versions. So that's kind of interesting. Okay. To start off, I've got Hawkeye from Earth's Mightiest. So with that, you could have the Sky Cycle. I think, kind of like with having Giant Man in the other list, it kind of can give you a different like level of displaying where you've got him kind of posed up a little bit. But also you could, if you really wanted to, sell off the Sky Cycle, and then your Hawkeye's a little bit cheaper. He doesn't necessarily need the Sky Cycle. I also went with a Black Panther in this list as well. I, though, went with the Void version, similar to my Toy Biz one I talked about earlier. You got the gold claws, got the cape. That's my favorite look for Black Panther, even though I haven't really read that story that's from. But it's on my list. I want to do that. I also have a Wonder Man in my team here, but I went Toy Biz purple because I just loved phasing. And it's a little bit of a cheat because if you get him new, you kind of get a little yellow jacket to port on his back, kind of flying around the corner. And he even comes with kind of like a Sky Cycle type thing too. Yeah. So again, another one that I really hope that Hasbro redoes. I liked those variants from Toy Biz. And yeah, that's still my favorite Wonder Man. You mentioned earlier the Walmart Black Widow. I put her in this list just because to me she wasn't quite classic team enough, but I think she's a good, like favorites team. So, and I love how much she comes with. She was going super cheap for a while. She's still, like I think you said, only like $20-$25. Good value for your money. I know the new one's more posable, but I feel like this one has more attitude. You know what I mean?
Spunk, one might say.
Yeah, exactly. More spunk. And then the last one I've got for my favorites list, I went with the Walmart Doctor Strange, which is still surprisingly, it's down to like $25. I think that was pretty high when it first came out, but has dropped since. But I think that's still the best Doctor Strange you can get. He's kind of got he's got 3 different heads, spell effects, got the wand to a tomb, the axe of something or another. A lot of accessories in there, good bang for your buck. I think
that's the technical name for it, actually.
So all of that, all of those accessories, 2 Sky Cycles.
The blade of what's his nuts. Sorry.
So all of those figures, all those accessories, 2 Sky Cycles, a jetpack, a little mini yellow jacket to sneak in there, and that's only going to run you about $120. So,
all right.
I think solid overall groupings here. Let us know what you think in the comments. What would be your 5 that you would put on your list of classic and favorites? Make sure you're liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, stay strong.
I feel like people are going to be like, what are your criteria here? It's kind of random, but it's like, whatever. I don't care.
The criteria is don't worry about it.
The criteria is shut the up and watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the criteria? Watch the video. Do I show up at your job and ask you why you're there? Why you're doing the things you do? No. This is my job. I work here.
I'd like for you to extend the same courtesies to me here.
Oh, I'm not having fun. This is work.
You can tell by the way I talk about toys, this isn't fun.
Another list. This is the thanks I get for working overtime.